I just listen. That's all I do. What's the old saying? God gave you 2 ears for one, or one
Right,
mouth for one
right.
reason.
Because we're not good at that. We're terrible at
No,
that.
no,
We're
no,
really,
no.
really bad at that.
It's time to talk. All right, here we go. And actually, I can throw up this one because we're going to start in Baltimore. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Well, is Lamar Jackson going to improve as a passer? And is it more than just the weapons added around him? That and more as the preseason watch list continues here on the Audible. Sig, let's start with Lamar Jackson and the
Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens. Is he taking that next step as a passer, or is it more of the same?
Well, they want him to, and they made moves for him to, and you hope that Greg Roman is evolving, right? We had half of the season, a little more than half the season, that the Ravens offense was stagnant. You can't do the same thing year over year in the NFL. You just can't. The coaches and the players are too good. So Lamar Jackson saying it feels like the defense already knows the plays. Obviously, they have to go back to the drawing board. What do? They get Sammy Watkins. They draft Rashad Bateman. They draft Tylan Wallace. Some other things that will help this team. Remember, Ronnie Stanley, their stud left tackle, missed a good part of the season. Going to watch his recovery. Nick Boyle, not so much to help the passing game, but certainly like a third tackle in the running game, a big part of their running game. He was out for a good part of the year. Kevin Zeitler, he's not bad. He's certainly going to help, again, more the running game, I think, than the passing game. One thing to watch here is Orlando Brown is gone. They got Alejandro Villanueva and Juwan James. Really interesting signing, the James signing, more looking down the line. Villanueva said he was looking forward to getting back to the ways at Air Force when he was just run blocking on every play, as opposed to what the Steelers were doing. More of a finesse approach. So with Lamar Jackson, he's going as the fourth or fifth quarterback. Now, he's already on the COVID list. I think we can say he's unvaccinated. This is going to be a weird thing, right? Because we're not going to know until after we find out if a player's out for 10 days or 2 days or 2 days after 2 negative tests. All I'm saying is it may make a difference. Although if he did indeed contract COVID during camp, then that should give him some natural immunity through the season. But will defenses be immune from his charms? Probably not. The end of the year, it was some weaker defenses. Cecil, will we ever forget the cramp game against Cleveland? We'll never. This John Harbaugh, by the way, back in March, John Harbaugh, I think, told a story about that on a podcast that was just excellent. I think they were asking Justin Tucker, like, can you kick a 68-yard field goal? No. And then Lamar Jackson comes trotting out. I'm ready. So Lamar Jackson, the running ability is going to be there. If the offense is updated or better in the passing game, his passing upside could get closer to 2019 levels. You can get him as the fourth, fifth quarterback off the board. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, more of the same with Lamar Jackson isn't a bad thing.
No.
Now, it depends on if we're talking fantasy football or regular football. In regular football, to further themselves in the postseason, you would like to see Lamar Jackson do things that we haven't seen him do as a passer. We're going to get to Rashad Bateman and how some of these players may be a little bit overhyped just based on their situation. But Bloom, you mentioned Roman evolving. I almost laughed.
Yeah.
Almost coughed up a lung because I was like, don't expect that to happen. But again, Jackson doing his thing. Behind him, Trace McSorley, everyone will talk about. But Tyler Huntley is the players that is more intriguing to me. We actually saw Tyler Huntley a bit last year, and we saw that he could kind of do a Jackson impression.
Mm-hmm. Remember when Tyrod Taylor was the backup here forever? Mm-hmm. This is what we're looking at with Tyler Huntley. And we talked about it when he landed with the team as an undrafted free agent. It's a perfect system for him. Perfect system for his skill set, for his talents. And you want to see if he can overtake McSorley, who's a tremendous athlete in his own right. And, of course, he's preseason DFS. You like a piece of those running quarterbacks.
Yeah, get a piece of that if you can. Get a piece of their ground game if you can. Now, you have Gus Edwards. I believe he's on the COVID list, Bloom.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You have J.K. Dobbins there as well. And this is a 1-2 punch, but from a fantasy perspective, how much is the one and how much is the two? Because we know Edwards certainly near pay dirt, and this comes back into Jackson. Is he more evolved as a passer? Is he still going to run? He's going to take away those goal line opportunities? Because Edwards could really cut into Dobbins' work. Dobbins could do it all if it was by himself. But it just seems like with Jackson running, with Edwards in his nose for the end zone and that size, it's going to cut into what Dobbins does. How do fantasy GMs navigate this?
I think they're both buys. at the current price. You can get Dobbins in the 3rd round. You can start taking a tight end or a wide receiver in round 1 or 2 and still get Dobbins as your second running back. I'd love trotting Dobbins out there as my second running back. I understand he's going to get 15 to 20 touches a game. He's not going to be a true bell cow back, but we've heard consistent drum beats about their desire to get him more involved in the passing game, and maybe more involved just means a couple of receptions a game. But remember, a few years back, Mark Ingram had, 5 touchdown receptions? So it's there for the running back to add on a few touchdowns. The other thing about Dobbins is, remember, what got us so excited about him was the big play possibilities, house calls, right? With Lamar Jackson and the stresses that this offense puts on opposing defenses, Dobbins is the kind of player who can give us 3, 4, 5, 60-plus touchdown runs, 60-plus yard touchdown runs, which can be the difference between being like running back 17 and running back 7. Week winning kind of plays because of his talents and because of the way this offense sets him up. So I'm fine with him in the 3rd round as my running back too. And then you have Edwards, Gus Bus, 8th, 9th, 10th round pick. But if you look at the games that Mark Ingram played 1 or 0 snaps, except for the debacle against the Steelers when Lamar Jackson was out, and Dobbins, you saw Edwards consistently in double digits in PPR leagues, occasionally contributing. When Gus Edwards catches the ball, he's going to run for like 20 or 30 yards because that's the last thing they expect, right? So I love Edwards as a flex play. Like anytime the Ravens are favored, right? You think the chances of...
In a game they should control, Edwards is flex worthy for sure.
Right. And, coming out of the gate against Vegas, week 3 against Detroit. These are games, hey, is Carson Wentz going to be back for week 5 against Indy? These are all games that what I like about Edwards is he can be a flex play. He can be a buy injury running back too. Now, if Dobbins were to go down, we're not looking at Edwards necessarily as a 20 carry back. Justice Hill's still there. We can talk about him. But I like getting pieces of this running game. See, I don't mind getting players who get fewer touches if they're higher quality touches. And the quality of touches for running backs in this offense might be the highest in the league.
Value. It's all about the value of said touch. And Bloom, I think we need to start a truther podcast. Number 4,982 on our list of podcasts that we want to do, because there are Justice Hill truthers out there still to this day that will shake their fists to the heavens and say, just get him an opportunity. Right. He could be the guy. Okay. Somewhere I sense Travion Williams take coming up, which will be a little bit later in the show. But with Justice Hill, what's there? They've got Tyson Williams and Nate McCrary in that backfield too. And again, the value of this backfield is they're going to run a lot. So if you do get an opportunity, we want to know those talented players who could run with said opportunity.
And with Hill, what you have is the acceleration, the straight line speed, maybe not as able to string a move on a move like Dobbins, who also has some straight line speed of his own. Justice Hill, you just got to know him because he's the 3rd running back in a very good running game. But watch out for Tyson Williams, Matt Waldman favorite. Did I say Morsees? Coming back from a knee injury last year, so you understand why he didn't make an impact. He's still there, and this is a perfect player for the preseason watch list because he could even put some heat on Hill with a good training camp, with a good preseason, and put himself in a plum spot where maybe by the end of the season we're talking about him on the waiver wire show.
Before we get to the wide receivers for the Baltimore Ravens, just a quick reminder about our FBG mobile app. Be sure to download the Footballguys mobile app today if you haven't already. It can be used on all smartphones and gives you all of the same tools that you'd find on our website, our new rejuvenated website. That's footballguys.com. Yeah. So check us out. Our Draft Dominator app will make sure you have an edge above your teammates by customizing the advice specific to your team. Download today so Footballguys can help you win. I can help you win. Here's a hot tip. Don't take any Ravens receivers. How about that? Marquise Brown's got a hamstring injury.
Right.
I just wrote about it on our newswire at footballguys.com. Shaggy. Because you've got a speed, fast guy, quick guy with a hamstring in August 2nd. That's not good. That's not what you want. Skipping ahead, I love Rashad Bateman in terms of his refined route running ability, Bloom. It's rare when we see a young player, a rookie, come in with that sort of skill set. But this is a run-heavy offense, so you can cut a rug, you can get open. Is your quarterback going to find you, and are they going to be throwing that much anyway? So with Brown, and even now with Bateman, because not that I pay attention to fantasy Twitter, but it seems like Everyone's super high on Bateman. That's cool. He's a great player. This isn't the offense where you should be expecting the number 2 wide receiver to do much of anything, regardless of how talented he is as a route runner.
Exactly, right? We didn't even mention Mark Andrews, but that's the point. Andrews, he's stable. And then, well, who knows? And even if this isn't going to be the 2020 Buffalo Bills, we're not going to see all of a sudden this offense tilt the other way in this dramatic way and be a pass-heavy offense. It may be a more clever pass offense, maybe slightly more pass-heavy than it's been in the past, which is always pass-lighter or something like that. But there's just not enough targets to go around. And this is why I am doing projections, season-long projections every day, going into the lab and adjusting everything, moving all the abacus, and abacusses. You do the numbers in this offense, and it's really difficult to find a way that any of these wide receivers are going to be consistent. And we can throw them all together. And Cecil, I guess by laying out the injuries, and who's the healthiest guy in camp right now? Sammy Watkins? Whoa, that's not what you want to hear. Yeah, exactly. So, you have Watkins and what he can do. You have Brown and what he can do. And I suppose if you're going to take anybody, it would be Brown before this injury, because like C said, if it's a speed receiver and he's already got a hamstring injury, that ain't good. And they also say early in camp, the hamstrings, like the check engine light, conditioning, etc., not a good look. Bateman already going through rookie tightness in training camp. We still have Devin Duvernay. Okay, James Prochet is doing some things. This is going to be a wide receiver by committee. Tylan Wallace, who can get it done downfield. He can figure in here. All of these receivers can have roles that are tailored to what their strengths are, and they can be deployed in a way that helps the Ravens win games, that helps Lamar Jackson help you win fantasy games, and yet not help you win fantasy games if you have any of these receivers. So I think that's where we're at. It's going to be interesting to watch what they do. It obviously matters for Lamar Jackson. It matters for this team. It doesn't matter for fantasy.
Does not matter for fantasy, but preseason watch list, we'll be watching these guys. What Diego was asking about the Duvernay truther group there as well. Miles Boykin, I appreciate his ball tracking ability. James Prochet there as well. So there's some names. Did Deion Kane get cut yet?
I don't know. Yeah,
it seems like that. It's like, oh my God. And again, preseason watch list, we usually talk about and go on and on about guys like Deion Kane, but there's talent here. There's certainly interesting players to watch. It's just in this system, not expecting much. Dynasty-wise, maybe looking at them saying when they're on another team, or if you're Deion Kane, your 8th team. We'll still talk about him, though, Bloom. It was Clemson.
Another Clemson receiver. Again, I want to say this. The Pittsburgh Pirates, my Pittsburgh Pirates convinced a Clemson quarterback commit to play baseball for them instead of going to Clemson. I love it. Hey, I think that Devin Duvernay is a magnificent fit for this offense. A vertical slot with a running back mentality. This is great. But again, it's going to amount to anything in the immediate? Probably not, especially with all these other outside receivers they have brought on.
Let's get to the tight ends, and that means Mandrew, and more Mandrew. And of course, if you are looking for tight ends, you look no further than Mark Andrews. Need I say it again, Bloom? Mark Andrews.
Yeah, and the question is was 2019 more of his median mean production, or was it 2020? Because look, if it's 2020, I don't even know if you take him over like Noah Fant. It's a little bit too up and down and touchdown dependent, which, welcome to the tight end fantasy conversation. Now, if this pass offense gets more efficient, if this offense returns to 2019 efficiency levels, now Andrews could be a slight value. But when it comes to fantasy where the rubber meets the road, every single time I'm taking Kyle Pitts and TJ Hawkinson over him, and probably they're a good 2 rounds more valuable than him because they have both the upside to flirt with that big 3 designation at tight end and the floor to know that they're not going to frustrate you week to week like Andrews did, even though Andrews could smooth those out. So, it goes down a little easier when your 1 catch or 2 catch games happen every 3 or 4 weeks. Last year was more like every other week with Andrews. So, we'll see if that changes, but I'm probably letting somebody else take Andrews. I'm trying to get one of those top 5 tight ends, i.e. he's not in my top 5.
What about the guys behind him? Any interest in Nick Boyle? Not Jack Doyle, Nick Boyle. Josh Oliver, Eric Tomlinson, etc.
Well, Boyle, again, it's just for the running game. It's very important for the running game that he's back from his knee injury last year. And Oliver is interesting because here's a player that was worth a third-round pick to the Jags 2 years ago as a receiving tight end. Now, they trade him for couch cushion change, new regime going through the roster. And Oliver's had a good camp to date and, most importantly, stayed healthy. Because, see, we continue to monitor players until we see that they can't play. We haven't seen that Oliver can't play. We just seen that he can't stay on the field. So if he can make this team, it helps them to have another receiving option in the middle of the field and maybe a bargain basement find that they can continue to develop before the end of his rookie contract.
If you're watching us on YouTube, then do all those YouTube things like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music or however you enjoy your podcasts, well, we chop up these division shows into the preseason watch list, 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about on this show. And up next, in Cincinnati, everyone's excited about Joe Mixon, but should you really not get too carried away with the veteran running back? That is next.
Not to get carried away. So, yeah, it's a little, you get a little in there.
Allergies kicking in.
Yeah.
Lots of moisture here, which is good.
I know. We've had moisture, like biblical moisture.
Plus, I refuse to take my top off. This sounds bad. On my Jeep, my top's down on my Jeep because everything's waterproof inside. Right. So I'm wherever I drive, my top's going to be down, or at least my windows are going to be open. So I'm I'll get a little stuffy, get a little allergy, you know what I mean? But I'm not taking it. It makes me mad when I see people with a hard top on a Jeep. I'm it's August in Colorado. What are you doing?
Right. Let the Jeep run free. It was born for that.
Yes. Let it breathe. And there's nothing better than going up to the mountains where there's no cell signal and you don't have to hear about WNBC.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on here. Cincinnati. In 3, 2, 1. Well, what is Joe Burrow going to do now that he's healthy and healthy-ish? Healthy enough, Bloom? That's the way to start out the Bengals preseason watch list. It comes down to Joe Burrow and his health. We'll talk about his added weapons. But where do you think he's at health-wise coming back from his knee injury?
Okay, good. Better than expected even. Now, fantasy-wise, how that ripples down is not as simple of an answer. Taking a step back for this offense, let's just remember that they added Riley Reif, played right tackle probably. They did not add Penny Sewell. Instead, they added Jamar Chase, which helps Burrow. He and Burrow made beautiful music together back at LSU. Does it help him as much as Sewell? Well, that depends on Reeve. It depends on second-round pick Jackson Carman, who was a tackle, but I think they see him as a guard at least, and a powerful guard. And again, I encourage folks to go back and watch those draft reaction videos when the players get the call, because Carman's a local kid, and his family's reaction, see, I'm getting tingles. When they found out, when he told them, it's Cincinnati, the reaction's just, it's going to make me tear up. So that's beautiful. If this offensive line can actually stay healthy, Jonah Williams can play like a first-round pick, now we're talking, right? Now, are we talking, go get Joe Burrow? No, I mean, except for those games against Cleveland when he threw the ball 70 times. Well, really not 70, but you get the point. He wasn't that great for fantasy last year. Now, offensive line should be better. He has Jamar Chase. But the running ability, I think you have to rein him in. You talked about health. I think you said health 3 times in that first sentence, right?
Yeah, healthy.
You don't run Joe Burrow. You just don't. It's just not worth it. You want him like Tom Brady. If the Heat is going to sit down in the pocket, just sit down. Peyton Manning was good at this too.
Self-sack, yeah.
Yeah, just sit down. Don't scramble. If you're scrambling, you're looking to throw or throwing the ball away or sliding outside the pocket. Now, even if you're not across the line of scrimmage, that's fine. So that takes a little bit of the excitement edge off of Burrow. Now, where you might get excited about Burrow, and this is know your scoring system and lineups, right? I see more and more leagues out there that do something like 0.25 for a completion and negative 0.5 for an incompletion. Like efficiency, rewarding efficiency. Leagues where you have 6 5-point passing touchdowns, leagues where you have bonuses for 300-yard games. Now I'm a little more interested in Joe Burrow because I do think he's going to be among the league leaders in pass attempts, among the league leaders in passing yards. This is going to be still a pass-heavy offense, a 3-wide receiver offense. So, I'm still Burrow's going off the board right after guys like Brady, Stafford, Tannehill. I'm much more interested in them than Burrow. So I'm not, especially in superflex leagues, I'm not trying to just brush off Burrow. He's an excellent quarterback too. In your typical one quarterback leagues, I think he's probably right in that no man's land where you either want someone with a higher ceiling or you want someone who's cheaper. That being said, I'm excited for the Bengals. I'm excited to see him play. And see, I like that they put the scar right out there in the hype video, the hype picture. Right. Saying we're not afraid of it. He's not afraid of it. Come on, it's Joe Burrow. He's not afraid of anything.
And he's not afraid. He'll never back down from anything. Except transfer from Ohio State. Anyway, it's all about Joe Burrow because I don't even want to talk about Brandon Allen, dude. No. I had to talk to Brandon Allen when he was here. Nice enough guy, right? Nice enough guy. But, it's all about Joe Burrow. And Burrow is one of those quarterbacks, depending on how your draft shakes out. If I get stuck with Burrow as my second quarterback, I'm not unhappy.
Right.
I could be happier with others, though, Bloom. I don't know. How would you describe Joe Burrow? It's you're fine. You're okay. Yeah. You don't need to go to marriage counseling, but you're fine. You'll get by.
Yeah, you'll get by. But again, I just think that he doesn't have exactly what we're looking for in terms of that cost. It's the same time of your draft where you might get Justin Fields or Trey Lance, who are just more likely to affect the outcome of your fantasy season than Joe Burrow. Let's see where they're at on the draft boards a month from now. But I'm still so excited for Burrow and so excited for this team, for this city to see what they can do. And for Zach Taylor to get to actually implement something like the offense that he was hired to implement.
Right.
But for fantasy, and like you said, for backups, just let's light our prayer candles that Burrow stays healthy.
And let's light our prayer candles about Joe Mixon. Now, fantasy football analysis isn't math. And I feel oftentimes there are too many people that consider it like math. Well, such and such backup gets to come in and such starter used to do this, and then he does that. And with Mixon, the math guys are going nuts of and then it's him, it's all him, and they'll run through this thing and Mixon all the time. Mixon won't stay healthy, and he won't really do that much with his opportunity. And how many of these games are they going to be able to control, Bloom? You mentioned it being a 3-wide receiver set. I'm throwing 4 wide receivers when we talk about the Bengals, and they've got the firepower to do it, by the way, with those wide receivers who we'll get to in a moment. So it's not like I'm down on Joe Mixon. It's just when I hear people go on and on about how great Mixon could be finally this year, I'm like, we're still doing that?
Yeah, sounds familiar, right? And he's a classic glass half full, glass half empty fantasy proposition. And another way to put it, Cecil, is no matter what he does, we're going to say, we should have known. We should have known. We like Joe Mixon, the talent, in a vacuum. He's a true 3-down back. He's got size, agility, speed. He's good in the passing game. And if you want to go for the glass half full fantasy take here, it is he's going to have the highest snap count, highest touches of his career, and hopefully in the best offense of his career, right? Remember what Todd Gurley did in the McVay offense as a receiver? We're going to see Joe Mixon on passing downs instead of Giovanni Bernard now. This could be really exciting. Now, last year, the Bengals offensive line could not open holes. He was stifled for most of the first month of the season, and then he had a massive game against Jacksonville. Like exactly the kind of game you're looking for from the kind of running back you take in the top 3. 150 plus total yards. I think he had 3 total touchdowns. It's in him. And then he immediately went down with that foot injury, which was not surgically repaired. So now, we get to the glass half empty side of it is he always falls short of expectations. Even if the expectations are lower than they are this year, he's constantly getting drafted near that 1-2 turn and never living up to it. Now, this year, because even though things are getting better for him and his surroundings and his opportunity, you are seeing that set in that emotional side of fantasy football where you see it's almost like where are the people who've had Joe Mixon before drafting in your league, right? Because if they're near the turn, Mixon might fall to the middle of the second round. Now, if I'm weighing Joe Mixon against a receiver and I just know I can go receiver heavy later, or if I'm weighing Joe Mixon against Waller and Kittle and I've got my eye on Pitts or Hawkinson or what have you, now in the mid-second, it's more palatable. Because, see, if we were to make a list of the running backs who have it in their range of outcomes to finish top 3, top 5, Joe Mixon is on that list. He could still frustrate you, but I'm a lot more capable of handling my second round pick frustrating me than my first round pick.
Very, very true. And with your pick of Joe Mixon, you also have to realize how Samaje Perine's going to get some work. We'll put a pin in Travion Williams. It is preseason watch list, so we're continuing to just kind of wait. Although with running backs, you should see it a little bit sooner. I know that that's not always the case in these situations, but with Travion Williams, we're kind of just waiting there. They've been talking up Chris Evans quite a bit about his pass catching ability. And if you look at Chris Evans from Michigan, kind of like their new Rex Burkhead bloom,
sure,
I could see that. And certainly Evans would probably be one of those guys that have a better pro career than he did a college career. He didn't do a whole lot at Michigan. What do you have, like 4 starts, something like that, top of my head? It wasn't many. And then at the Senior Bowl, he didn't wow me, like Ramondre Stevenson didn't wow me, but that's for New England's episode. But still, so you have some guys that can work in Perine just to do his, nose for the end zone type thing, short yardage, bull back, basically. And then Evans maybe as a receiving back to get some work in. And Travion is the guy that we'll watch to see if he does get an opportunity. Could Travion Williams be the guy that takes over and does what you want Mixon to do?
We're watching this, right? Because if we don't believe in Mixon, then we want to know who's next up. And the answer is simple. And another reason to consider Mixon in that mid-second round range is, unlike some of the other backs, like, Cecil, if you take, we're going to get to this in this YouTube episode, if you take Najee Harris, who do you take if he goes down? Kalen Balaj? I don't know. But it's going to be Perine. This team, this organization really likes Samaje Perine. Remember,
they locked him.
Yeah. I mean, they brought him back, gave him guaranteed money that showed he was going to be part of the team in 2021 before they let Giovanni Bernard go. Okay? Perine's the backup. Perine's going to get a series or 2 a game. And if you don't believe Joe Mixon can hold up, then you better be taking Perine late. He's one of the easiest guys to take late as far as cost, where if the starter goes down, you have an instant starting fantasy running back. He can be a 3-down back. And what more is there to say? So if you take Mixon and you have to hold your nose, just make sure you reserve like a 15th round pick for Perine, and hopefully you'll never need to use Perine. Or even if you don't take Mixon, remember Perine at the end of your draft. And then some very interesting guys here. Like you said, Travion Williams still hanging around at the end of the roster. Kind of reminded me of Devin Singletary, where he's a little undersized, not that fast, got a lot of fight, got a lot of toughness. And I think that's kind of how his pro career's gone, where he just physically doesn't offer quite enough to bubble up into a role, but he's got enough that you want to keep him around in case you need him. But now they've reloaded, even without Giovanni Bernard. They go get Chris Evans. And like you said, Cecil, this is a really interesting guy because highly recruited, but by the end of his Michigan career, he was barely getting on the field.
Right.
And then he goes in the 6th round, right? This is odd. Well, he's got very advanced passing down skills. So you may see him get on the field on passing downs occasionally. And then you also have a running back who has some size, who has athletic ability, just never realized his potential at Michigan. And then you have Puka Williams. Now, Puka Williams is interesting because you can contribute on special teams, run some jet sweeps, maybe play a little running back, play a little wide receiver, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now, there's not room for all three of these guys to make the roster. I think that 2, obviously 1 will, but 2 may make it. So this is going to be fun to watch. I know Puka Williams is one of those players who has his own cult following. I think after we see him in the preseason, if you haven't seen him back at Kansas, you'll know why.
Yeah, and Puka, not Pookie, because Pookie looks really good at the Broncos training camp. It is a Broncos show, and Puka's there, Tariq Cohen-Bloom. Is that fair?
Sure. I mean, but every offense, see, so I'm going to go back to this, right? Every offense needs somebody that forces the defense to honor the jet sweep. And I think that he can be that player. And again, do more for this team.
And now I got me thinking about Khalil Herbert, him and Puka when they were at Kansas. Anyway, before we get to the wide receivers, and they are aplenty with the Cincinnati Bengals, just a reminder about our Football Guys email sign up. You need to sign up for the Football Guys daily email update if you haven't already. Every day, Joe Bryant and company, That's me and Sigmund. We'll bring you all of the latest from Football Guys, news, transactions, rumors, and all the articles and shows from the Football Guys staff. It is our Football Guys free daily newsletter. Sign up right now for free at footballguys.com. There is those wide receivers, Tyler Boyd. And this is where we gotta go with the quaternary, Bloom, because Tyler Boyd conversation, Jamar Chase, nose for the end zone conversation, T. Higgins and that size and that speed coming through, and Auden Tate is that fourth guy. So I feel like a lot of the times we can talk about two guys or maybe even one guy to start out with. But on this team, I don't know how we can talk about the three without the fourth, or the one without the three, and the two without the four. We got to talk about all these guys together.
We do. And I'll start here. I've quoted this stat a lot this offseason, but I want to remind people of this. Joe Burrow in his starts threw to wide receivers on average 28.4 times. So I don't know if we had an offense that has had 3 top 24 fantasy wide receivers that cut off for a wide receiver 2. I don't know if it happened with Arizona. I don't know if it happened with Indy. This offense absolutely can and really should do it because of the volume, because of the quality of talent, and because of how well suited these guys are for their roles in the offense. And we can step through them. The first one you'll see go off the board. You probably have to take him in the 4th round if you want to. Maybe he'll be there in the 5th round, is Chase. Now, Chase has that allure of the unknown upside, and Chase has that unprecedented situation where a quarterback's favorite receiver is now reunited with him. So that's exciting. And Chase is, see, if we were to do a sort of a slider here, right? At one end of the spectrum is Tyler Boyd and volume. At the other end is T. Higgins and big plays. And Chase is a little bit of both, somewhere in between. He isn't necessarily going to lead the team in yards per catch or receptions or targets or touchdowns, but he probably isn't going to be the third of the 3 in those categories either. T. Higgins, 5th round pick. And I understand, folks, even if you're willing to take him ahead of Chase or take him in the 4th round, because he had that drumbeat this offseason of, well, just think of DK Metcalf. Who is a good candidate to be this year's DK Metcalf? Where in the rookie year, you say, wow. And then in the second year, you say, oh, he's one of the best in the game, isn't he?
Yeah, there's another one in this division, by the way. We'll get to Chase Claypool in a little bit.
Yeah, so it's exciting times. But really the most attractive for fantasy leagues is Tyler Boyd. I feel like there's just a blind spot, a collective blind spot. Maybe I'm the one with the blind spot in the fantasy community about Tyler Boyd. And I get it. His ADOT is not going to be great. His highlight reel is not going to be great. But if you look at what he did with Joe Burrow last year, okay, that first game against the Chargers was kind of a slop fest, 4 for 33. Then you got 7 for 72 and a touchdown, 10 for 125, 7 for 90, 4 for 42, 5 for 54, but he also had a 25-yard run, 11 for 101 and a touchdown, 6 for 67 and a touchdown, and then 6 for 41. So what you have here in PPR leagues is a receiver that's going to give you that 10 or 12-point floor most every week. So he's not going to be a zonk. But when Burrow's his volume approaches those high 40s games that are going to come, he can give you that Keenan Allen kind of game, that 10 for 100 and a touchdown game as your wide receiver 3, or maybe even you draft him as your wide receiver 4, as your flex in those start 3 wide receiver leagues. Come on. This is a guy that I have, as long as he continues to fall to the 7th round. I'm even taking him in the 6th round, depending on where my draft slot is. I'm taking him every single time. Again, like I mentioned, Keenan Allen. In some ways, his profile isn't that different than like DeAndre Hopkins in the sense that you're not going to see a lot of big plays. You're not going to see a lot of 50-yard touchdowns. What you are going to see is every single week he's going to be in a core role in this offense. So that's the top 3. But see, as you say, we can start talking about wide receiver injury upside. And they have a very good 4th wide receiver who just happens to get denied opportunity because this team continues to add wide receivers in the draft.
Yeah, it's just one of those wait till Auden Tate goes to another team, I guess. You do have guys behind the big 4 like a Mike Thomas. Trent Taylor still kicking around Bloom, right? Or a little slot thing. But the preseason watch list, anyone behind the big 4 you want to highlight there?
Yeah, there's Taylor, Thomas. These are some players with Tate, and again, we're going to highlight Tate here. If someone goes down, Tate has that long frame, the contested catch game, especially in the red zone. Taylor, I think, is fighting for Puka Williams for that last roster spot. I think it's going to come down to one of those two guys. Taylor can give you the punt returns. Taylor can also give you that utility player, replacing Alex Erickson. And Mike Thomas, the good Mike Thomas. Which one is he now, right? Mike Thomas is in there, just filling some gaps. But Auden Tate is absolutely... Cecil's doing it again, by the way. I know that you don't like, football Twitter, fantasy Twitter. I get it. But one of the fun things about it is during training camp, when 4 or 5 of your beat writer accounts all at once go, oh, wow, about a play. And that's like an Auden Tate tradition.
That sounds pretty good. Our man Diego wants some Drew Sample appreciation as we get to the tight end spot. We got to talk about Sample and CJ Uzomah together, combined, or separate, Bloom.
Yeah, I think that I'll talk about them combined for the sake of brevity, but Uzomah is the guy you want for fantasy. And again, let's just revisit this. In the first 2 games of the season, Uzomah had 445 and 442 and a touchdown. Those are super fine tight end numbers for fantasy football. You project that out over a 16-game season, of course, 17 games this year. You project that out, it's like a season similar to what TJ Hawkinson did last year. And he was injured partway through that second game. So he could have easily come out of the gate as a top 10 fantasy tight end. In the first 2 games, I get it, small sample size. I get it. Yes, and Sample caught 7 passes in that next game, the rest of that game. And he had another game where he caught 7 passes. But Sample, even though they took him in the second round, Cease, help me out again. Who's the blocking tight end that the Broncos took in the second round, McDaniel's first draft?
Oh, that was Richard Quinn.
Richard Quinn, right?
Third round, end of the third.
And Mighty Quinn. My point is they took a blocking tight end in the second round. The Bengals did. And a blocking tight end can be important for this team, especially if he can stand up and be a third tackle type. But it's going to matter for the team's fantasy prospects. But no, Drew Sample, you just want to hear that Uzomah is back from the Achilles. All indications are he's at. So if you're in a tight end premium league where you take 2 tight ends, maybe you take one at the end of your draft. We're talking about waiver wire watch list at the beginning of the year. Uzomah makes the cut. And let's remember Randy Moss's son, Thaddeus Moss. We're getting the band back together. Well, Chase and Moss. That's kind of 2 of the band. What's that, like the saxophone and the bass? I don't know.
Right. Thaddeus Moss there. Cheyenne O'Grady there, which sounds like an Irish pub locally. So there you go. I went down to Cheyenne O'Grady's the other night. Had a couple, Irish car bombs, whatever. So there you go. Bloom, that pretty much wraps up Cincinnati, right?
I was thinking calf fries with corned beef.
All right, that is a wrap for the Bengals. It is the preseason watch list, 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about on this show. Cincinnati, check. On to Cleveland, then. Will Kareem Hunt cut into Nick Chubb's role so much that it makes people sad they drafted Chubb? That's next. Don't make me laugh, Bloom.
Oh, sorry. That's going to be terrible. One of us has to have some surgery and then record soon after that. We're going to bust a stitch or something.
Right. Just be careful with that. If I actually did sit-ups, that would hurt too.
You have calf fries when you were a kid, Cease?
What are those?
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Oh, I've had those. Yeah.
Same thing.
Oh, okay. Calf fries. I never heard them called that.
Yeah. It's good. I suppose that there's a lot of good stuff. Like your body knows what to do with that kind of tissue and meat, and take the good stuff out of it, right?
It literally does taste like chicken.
It does taste like
Bull's
chicken.
Balls are just like chicken, and just a little chewier, right? Do I got to say sorry, Joe? Will YouTube demonetize this video because I said Bull's Balls?
No, because we talk a lot of ball. Ball comes up a lot.
Ball's fine. Football,
How could
bull
YouTube
ball.
know? How could they know?
YouTube always knows.
Yeah.
All right. Our YouTube overlords. Okay, let's do this thing. Cleveland going on in 3, 2, 1. They have designs on making a deep postseason run, but how does Baker Mayfield and company get that done? And what does it mean for your fantasy team? It's the Browns episode of the preseason watch list, Bloom. And let's start with Baker, the baby maker, a healthy OBJ, better protection, more weapons around him. What does that mean for Mayfield in 2021?
You led off the right way by saying a healthy OBJ, and he's healthy. This is not a Cortland Sutton situation. Stay tuned to Cecil Lammey and everything that he's going to tell us about that. He's back. Odell Beckham is back, and we know how good he is. And the other thing is this defense is going to be a lot better. Anthony Walker got hurt today. It's going to date when we recorded this. But the defense is going to be a lot better. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily good for the fantasy prospects of this team in terms of cumulative stats because they're going to get in more favorable game scripts. But it is good for this team, I think, in terms of wins, in terms of excitement. Jared, we love you. A lot of Browns fans out there, long-suffering Browns fans. Yes, you have permission to get excited. And we add Beckham to the mix. Look, Baker Mayfield, and this is, again, Superflex 2-quarterback leagues, that's where he becomes more interesting. Because of the low volume risk in any given game, Baker Mayfield's not really a suitable quarterback for 1-quarterback leagues. Maybe you'll start him on a bye, an injury, a matchup where you think, like remember that Baltimore-Cleveland game of the year last year? Like there are going to be occasionally some games where you say Mayfield could get in a shootout, and now this offense, the offense without Beckham last year had the capability to hang in a shootout. But now, because what you saw was, they're not rookies at the end of the year, right? This team wasn't a rookie in the Stefanski offense by the end of the year. It had integrated, it had gelled, and it's a very difficult offense to defend. When you add Beckham back, his ability to get behind the defense on those shot plays, now we're really cooking. So the big games will be there for Mayfield. It may be hard to time them. I think this is one of the situations where fantasy is not that interesting. Let's just sit back and enjoy and see what happens.
I think this is one of those things where the football is going to be much more exciting for Cleveland, but that's where Cleveland fans want it. You want a fantasy relevant team that doesn't go anywhere, or you want a team that can make a run to the Super Bowl. And how many times have we said that about Cleveland?
Right.
We've said, like, we're rooting for you, Browns fans, and we love you and all that, but legitimate Super Bowl contenders. That's what they have. And behind, they've got Case Keenum. So, you're covered if Baker has to go down based on how this team wants to play. We'll get to the backfield in a little bit. And it is preseason watch list. I'll throw out, some views for Kyle Lauletta, just to see. But I know that with Case as their backup, they won't really miss a beat if Baker has to miss some time.
Truly sees. And I think if we were going to do a list, and someone out there, I like to put stuff out there, it's self-aggrandizing to say, I'm going to put an idea out there that I'll never have time to do. But say someone else listening, take it and run with it. Who are the teams, or list the teams from 1 to 32 in order of how much their offense will lose if the starting quarterback goes down. And maybe there's some ins and outs here of who starts week 1 and who's considered the backup and who's the starter. But I'll say this, Case Keenum, under Kevin Stefanski, looked like an NFL starting quality quarterback, even a good NFL starting quality quarterback, even one who went to the NFC title game and made one of the iconic playoff plays of all time. All right? So Case Keenum can execute in this offense, and see, where does the value in this offense come from? Does it come from individual plays, inspiration? No, it comes from the play designs. It comes from the execution. Case Keenum can execute in a Kevin Stefanski offense. So it's another reason for Browns fans to sleep with a smile. They deserve a good team. They deserve a team to get them excited.
Yes, and you deserve to have Nick Chubb on your fantasy team, but Kareem Hunt, Bloom, how much does he cut in to Chubb's fantasy value, and is it enough that you'll be sad if you take Chubb?
No. And let's take a moment out to say the Browns did the right thing, giving Chubb the 3-year, $36 million, $20 million guarantee. He's running back, don't pay running back.
Don't pay a running back, dude.
When it's Nick Chubb, you pay Nick Chubb. When it's Nick Chubb in this offense, you pay Nick Chubb. And see, sometimes I feel like people don't understand team building, because when a player outperforms his rookie contract to the tune of what Chubb has done, and you reward him before the end of his rookie contract, you give him a market value deal, it sends a message to everybody on the team. You perform, you're going to get paid. You're going to get the security that you're after. You give us what we're looking for, we're going to give you what you're looking for. As this team is building not just for this year, but it's a new era, it's the right move. It's the right move to take Chubb at the end of the first round. So, see, we can look at this. What did Chubb? I did a list, and the kinds of running backs that had over 5.5 yards per carry on 190 or more carries. I know Chubb had exactly 190. We're talking about Jim Brown, O.J. Simpson, Barry Sanders. These are the kind of running backs that have done that. Not many, okay? Very few. Some would say regression. No. This is evidence of a special alignment between a talent and a system, just like we have in Minnesota with Dalvin Cook. So, yes, he's not going to produce big numbers in the passing game. Yes, he's rarely going to get more than 20, 21, 22 carries in a game, but he's almost a guarantee to score a touchdown. And remember, winning team. See, so if we think, hey, the Browns can win 12 or 13 games this year, that's Chubb's music, man. I mean, those are games when Chubb is the boa constrictor in the second half against defenses that are just tired of seeing this running game come at them. And last year, we can handle Chubb and Hunt together, right? Because when you think of Hunt, you think, well, if Chubb goes down, upside, right? Hunt was already a top 10 fantasy running back. But guess what? And then people have pointed out that Hunt was a little bit banged up when it happened, but Chubb went down for 4 games last year. Hunt's production for fantasy now was basically the same. Now, again, I think there were some bad weather games in there and whatnot, but it wasn't like Hunt turned into this 30-point per game running back for fantasy when Chubb was out. But you know what we never talk about, Cease?
What's that?
What would Chubb look like if Hunt went down? Oh my. Like the number 3 overall pick in fantasy drafts, maybe? So you get that too. Like Chubb could deliver on that late first round fantasy draft capital just fine, but there is injury upside to Chubb also. But the important thing here is you're attaching yourself to a great player in a great system at the peak of his career. This is exactly what you want. This is how you make sure you don't blow your first round pick. Now, Hunt in the 5th round, maybe not quite as exciting. Remember, he was more up and down after Chubb came back. So like some games he may catch 5 passes and score a touchdown to be a 20-point player. Other games he might be a 7 or 8-point player. So he's a little more flex than running back 2, but to get a running back of his caliber, and again, attached to a good offense. I can't knock anybody for taking him in the 5th round. That being said, I'm probably taking a wide receiver there, thinking about taking Trey Sermon a round later.
Thinking about Nick Chubb, and well, that's about all you have to think about when you think talented, super talented running backs. Behind Chubb and Hunt, there's Dearness Johnson, Demetric Felton, John Kelly, who I've always had a soft spot for. Although you just get to the pros sometimes, you're like, I guess they don't have it.
Right.
That's probably the case with Kelly. But you think of this system, this team, and well, preseason watch list, it's important to know which one of these guys can play.
Right. See, so when I think of Kelly, I think running backs in the NFL cannot live on contact balance alone. Right. This is what we're seeing with Devin Singletary. We're probably past this with Dave Montgomery. Contact balance is a great thing, but you've got to have other physical traits to go along with it. NFL quality physical traits. That's why we may have been a little too high on John Kelly. But you remember the name Dearness Johnson. He looked like he gets this system. He gets this running game. And maybe a little bit more like a sprinter, like a Raheem Mostert type than the type that Chubb or Hunt presents to a defense. But again, third string running backs. And when the production is just the residue of execution, Dearness Johnson could be league winner, man. If Chubb and Hunt were to go down and Johnson was the starter for week 15, 16, 17, we're probably going to project him as a top 10, top 15 running back at the lowest. And then I got to mention Demetric Felton, even though for fantasy, we probably don't even care. But he's got that slot receiver, running back / skill set, somebody that can also contribute on special teams. That 53rd man on the roster who at a key moment can make a play. Stefanski maybe can draw up a few plays for him. I loved that pick. I think he's the kind of player that we don't care about for fantasy, but in a key moment can help a team win a game.
Yeah, and Felton at the Senior Bowl earlier this year was working as a slot receiver. And he's the type of player, Bloom, you've seen the speed on tape, where all he needs is a crease.
Yep.
Like the smallest little crease. And you talk about incredible foot frequency or steps per yard, as we like to say. Mm-hmm. Felton's got it. So maybe it's only a touch or two a game. Could be very impactful touches there for one Demetric Felton. Let's talk wide receivers and a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. But before we do, you love the show, you want to support the show, then check out our Footballguys premium subscription. If you're into this show, you're a serious fantasy player, but consistently winning at fantasy football is challenging and it takes time. You need a Footballguys premium subscription that gives you an edge and helps you make winning decisions in less time. Just head to footballguys.com, click the orange button in the upper right that says join now. We'll do the work. You do the winning. It is footballguys.com. There is ODB. May never be what he used to be, Bloom, but what he can be is pretty damn good. Healthy, motivated on a winning team with a strong defense. I didn't even mention how the defense ties into the rushing attack, how the rushing attack is going to be the primary focus. You're going to see more single coverage for these receivers than you would see on other teams based on how they'll run the ball, how you'll have to stack the box to try to stuff Chubb and Hunt. That means single coverage for ODB. I don't care if he's older and not the same. I like that matchup.
Yeah, get that stuff out of here. Get it out of here. Look, we can go back. When people say, oh, the offense was better because Beckham got... Come on. Get it out of here. This offense came together. They were executing. They got it. That's not because Beckham was out. You can go back and watch the beginning of the year. You had that game against game against Cincinnati where he had a long touchdown. There was another one that was there, but William Jackson basically just grabbed his pants and kept him from separating. The refs didn't see it, so that could have been a 2-touchdown, 100-plus yard game. And remember, Odell Beckham gave us a signature Odell Beckham game last year against the Cowboys. Do you remember that game? That was a fun game. So he still had it last year, and that was in an offense that was misfiring. They weren't there yet, okay? Now he's going to be incorporated into an offense where, again, the shot plays. And I know it's a low volume offense, all right, pass-wise. But when you're getting targets off of play action against defenses that are stressed out trying to figure out how to stop Chubb and Hunt, it only takes 4 or 5 targets a game for Beckham to be someone that you leave in your lineup every week. And look, you're drafting him we were used to Beckham being a first-round fantasy pick. And then all of a sudden last year he was like a third-round fantasy pick. And now he's a 6th-round fantasy pick, maybe a 5th-round pick. But what that means is you're putting him in as your third wide receiver. So if he only gives you 3 for 40 one week, okay, because the next week he can give you 4 for 120 and touchdown, or maybe 5 for 180 and 2 touchdowns. He absolutely has that capability because by design, this offense is going to target him on plays that break open fantasy matchups, that break open games. And he's coming at his cheapest price ever. Sign me up.
Sign me up in PPR for Jarvis Landry, but Bloom, it's rinse repeat.
Yeah.
When it comes to Landry. Now behind him, we'll talk a little Landry here, but Rashard Higgins, love him. And they bring him back again. Why does no other team have appreciation for Rashard Higgins? Like, seriously, he'll just sit out there in free agency and, like, nobody will call him, and then the Browns will bring him back, and he'll put up some numbers. Donovan Peoples-Jones there as well, so we can talk about Landry, Higgins, and Peoples-Jones here.
Yeah, they did an important thing here. They brought back, I think, 1 to 6, actually, the depth chart from last year at wide receiver, including Higgins. With Landry, so you talk about some concerns about volume. Now that applies to Landry, because if we're talking about a volume wide receiver whose fantasy value comes from his target share, that's where the lower volume, and it's week to week, in a certain game script where Mayfield has to throw 45 times, Landry can still give us those 9 for 90 kind of games. I don't think that's going to come regularly. Even if you look at last year's stats, remember that's without Beckham for almost 2/3 of the year. So probably staying away from Landry at ADP. I just don't see where the upside is there. And we're staying away from everyone else in terms of fantasy value, but there's interesting guys to talk about. See, even the Browns themselves didn't appreciate Higgins for a while.
Right.
But he's a very good number 3 receiver, although that fumble at the goal line, I hope that's not what we remember him for. First game of the year. By the way, get excited. Kansas City, Cleveland, first game of the year. Week 1. Oh, yeah. Look, and I don't know if it's a Thursday night game when I say first game of the year. But then there's Donovan Peoples-Jones. What you really like about Donovan Peoples-Jones is in a very limited sample size. See, you talk about not very many plays or targets, touches, but impactful. That was Donovan Peoples-Jones last year. And remember the narrative coming in about him. Highly recruited, physically talented off the charts, but very quiet at Michigan. Now, the excuse was quarterback play. Watching last year, I think that was probably correct. That maybe affect Nico Collins. File that away for the AFC South preseason watch list, where these ultra-talented Michigan receivers can't show it at Michigan. Well, he showed it last year. I think he can be the number 3 receiver for this team. I think he can be the number 2 receiver for this team next year. I think that he's a player who we should just sever that idea of 6th-round draft capital, because he's the kind of receiver physically that will go in the 2nd or 3rd round. He played like that last year, so that is exciting. They also brought back Daryl Hodge, who played the former Ram, who played a role, and then we get to the 6th guy. I guess they brought back 1 to 5. Anthony Schwartz, may the Schwartz be with you, and he has that deep speed. Now he's got a little bit of that Ted Ginn inconsistency to him, But at the same time, again, you're adding these elements, and you really like this idea because, okay, Beckham goes down again. At least from a tactical standpoint, they have someone who can take the top off the defense, which helps keep things going for the running game, that back and forth where the defense is stressed out. So I love what the Browns have built. I like what they're thinking when they put this roster together from top to bottom.
And don't forget the ankle breaker. I'm Jojo Natson.
Yeah.
Ryan Switzer's there. Hey.
Yeah.
That's a tiny, smallest catch radius. His catch radius is the size of my computer monitor. But hey, he could, if you get him the ball, he can do something with it. So preseason watch list, Bloom. You'll watch Jamarcus Bradley, somebody like that. Yeah,
Bradley actually made a few plays when he was out there. Natson and Switzer, you have a chance to make the team special teams. I thought Bug Howard just converted to tight end. Speaking of those old Tar Heels, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ian Hart at Cease that we were talking about. Catch radius expression as the size of an animal, Yeah, Ryan Switzer's catch radius is like a golden retriever.
I was thinking of goldfish. Kidding me? All right, let's get to the tight ends. And why doesn't Buffalo call Cleveland for David Njoku? David Njoku's probably wondering why anybody doesn't call them for David Njoku. But Austin Hooper, spit in the cooler. Okay, there's Austin Hooper. There's Harrison Bryant, who we can talk about emerging, taking more away from Hooper, what have you. There's David Njoku, just wondering when he's going to get traded, if ever at all or anything. But here we go. Talented pass catchers, talented ground game, and talented tight ends. Kind of pick your poison here.
Yeah, tight ends that this offense uses a lot. This is a tight end heavy offense, and they have a very good depth chart. So chances are they're going to end up keeping Njoku. They like having that physical ability, speed, and depth at the position. Hooper should be better than last year as he got over a little injury issue and the offense came together. His numbers level off a little bit. Now, is he going to win your league? Is he going to be the breakout tight end of the year again? No. That was a perfect situation for him opportunity-wise in Atlanta, but he can be better than last year. He can be a fine bye week, injury, emergency tight end, and I think that he'll be better, but not enough to really matter for fantasy leagues. Harrison Bryant, Matt Waldman favorite, looks like a future starter in the league, did pretty well with opportunity. These tight ends don't do anything in their rookie year, right? He actually, for what he did and the opportunity he had, that bodes very well for his future. Like you said, Njoku, what was the big thing when he came into the league? He was a 20-year-old. So at least that helps when he's back for agency next year. Right. He's only a 24-year-old, but a 24-year-old who hasn't done much more than 20-year-old Njoku did.
All right. It is the preseason watch list. It is 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. And we often joke, although is it really a joke, that it is a Steelers show. And why Big Ben, they need to take the ball away from him. We'll explain that next. All right. That's right.
Time for some neurotic Steelers fan takes.
It's
so sad, as a Steelers fan, Cease. I almost feel like in recent years, and this is me, and this is something I really hope ends up on the cutting room. I mean, no one will hear this except people watching it live, right?
Yeah.
I almost end up feeling relieved when their season ends. You know what I mean?
I just wish they would have got it done differently.
Yeah. We'll see. I still love the Steelers, but Kendrick Green, they like him, the center. That's something.
Yeah, they also like Mason Rudolph, so there's that.
Oh God!
My God.
Hey, seriously? Dwayne Haskins is looking good.
Okay.
Dwayne Haskins.
You know who else is looking good? Justin Fields. So there you go. All right, let's get this thing on in 3, 2, 1. Well, much appreciation to Ben Roethlisberger for his career, but things need to change, and Ben's got to go, or at least hand off more, Bloom.
Yeah.
So 600 passes, cut that in half, Eddie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That might be better for this team. We'll get to Najee Harris in a little bit, but let's talk Ben and his prospects for this season.
Well, the Steelers' offense prospects, right? And they had a clear mission. You have to give them a compliment for clarity because it was one thing and one thing only, rebuild the running game, okay? What do we see here? Matt Canada, and isn't this a picture of the Steelers? They, instead of hiring a new offensive coordinator. They promote Matt Canada, who's kind of an offensive assistant. You're going to have more jet sweep motion, more play action, some of these 21st century things that the Steelers haven't really done a lot on offense. They need a new offensive line coach. They promote Adrian Clem, and he's supposed to give this offensive line a mean streak. They've made some changes. Not some changes, a lot of changes. Who's the incumbent starter here? Kevin Dotson, their 4th-round pick last year, one of the guard positions. So, you've got Chuck Okorafor, left tackle. Zach Banner, if he can stay on the field, can be the right tackle. You have David DeCastro. And that was, I think, we've been saying all offseason the Steelers' line is going to be a problem. And then when DeCastro suddenly up and retired, all of a sudden everyone caught up and said, oh, wow.
Right. It's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem. And at the very least, for the running game, Try Turner is going to be a road grader compared to Castro. Now, for the passing game, maybe muchos problemas. And then Green, the 3rd-round rookie who they like, he's going to get the first shot at center. But what you have, Cease, is something that we rarely see in the NFL, which is basically 5 new starters. And I think that the projected 5, as of this moment on August 2nd, haven't been on the field together in training camp yet.
Oof.
And you have Ben Roethlisberger. So now let's turn the page to Roethlisberger. He's slim, right? I mean, if he can lose weight, we can lose weight, right? I mean, I guess
that's what they say.
He should be our inspiration. But he doesn't like to get hit anymore. That's a problem. Okay, you're not seeing Roethlisberger making these plays with someone hanging off of him like he used to. You're not seeing the push in the running game, and you're seeing this offense probably stuck in short passing again, predictable passing. You just hope that all the changes that they've made to establish the run, which we'll get to the biggest one, matter and take a little bit of heat off of Roethlisberger. Because why is Roethlisberger going, even though he had, 30-something passing touchdowns last year, I don't know, 33 or something, he's still like the 20th fantasy quarterback off the board or even later because he's old. Because whatever Roethlisberger you get in September, that's not what you're going to get in December. The hits are going to pile up. The nicks and bumps are going to pile up. Even if he's not on the injury report, even if he's not missing time, he's not going to be the same quarterback, especially because of this offensive line. So the running game and the defense, that's what they want. The defense we know is going to be there, although there's some potential critical points of failure there, having to let go of Steven Nelson. Not great. We'll see. I think James Pierre has had a good camp so far. They're going to try to win games. An ideal Steelers score this year is going to be like 17-13. Not exactly fantasy fireworks, but that may keep Roethlisberger upright and effective into the time of year that they need him to be.
Yeah, what you'd want as a Steelers fan is for them to run the hell out of the ball. We'll get to Harris in a little bit. But then maybe towards the playoffs, Bloom, we all know that you have to do something differently. Even right. Bill Cowher, when he got to Super Bowl 40, it's like, besides paying off the officials against Seattle, I always love when Seattle fans cry about that. Like, they paid off the refs. Like, oh, God. It was a horrible Super Bowl, to be sure. But Paul Allen had how much money compared to the Rooney family to pay off the refs? Anyway, I'm just complaining now. But get to the postseason and then let Ben go on like a 3-game tear, right? Like he used to, you know what I mean? Like that would be pretty cool. Very improbable, but still pretty cool. And notice I want to talk about this more than Mason Rudolph, who I just don't like. I don't think he's good. Unfortunately, I think the Steelers think he's good. That's bad. It is preseason watch list. Hell, I'll watch Dwayne Haskins if Haskins can ever rekindle that, youngster that he was at Ohio State. And I always love when people are like, what Ohio State quarterback has worked out? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, what Missouri quarterback has worked out? Let's talk about that.
Sure.
But it is preseason watch list, so I'm interested to see what Haskins looks like with his fresh start.
Oh, see, so Steelers fans, these are some of the more meaningful snaps of the season, including regular season. Because if Roethlisberger stays healthy, knock on wood, and we don't see Rudolph or Haskins during the year, this is going to be one of the big statement moments for both of these players to show that they can be the starting quarterback in 2022. And by the way, the beat writers say, don't count out Roethlisberger. He took a $5 million pay cut this year. Maybe he'll take another $5 million pay cut. I don't know. So the Steelers, by the way, with that, took a stand with Roethlisberger and said, you're not the quarterback you used to be. We're not going to pay you like you're the quarterback you used to be. We're going to pay you like the quarterback that you are. A stopgap. basically, so we don't have to start Mason Rudolph, who they also extended. Great, you get Mason Rudolph at a discount. Well, I mean, is it a discount? I don't think so. And then there's Haskins. And if you're looking for the reclamation project narrative, it has started. Now, reclamation project for Haskins doesn't mean remind everyone why you were a first-round pick. It probably means hang around the league as a backup. You know, that's redemption for him, but he's on his way. And because of the Steelers having no succession plan at quarterback, he could be the week 1 starter for this team next year. It starts with camp and then a good preseason. So there's a quarterback battle here. It's a backup job, but a backup job that could turn into a starting job.
Starting for the future or starting for now when Ben gets hurt. How do you keep Ben healthy? Run the hell out of the ball. Enter Najee Harris, the savior for the Steelers, Bloom?
No. See, I say this every time, so I'm sorry if folks get tired of hearing it. But in some ways, Harris embodies that running backs don't matter debate. Because the idea is the production, is the plus that your running game adds to your offense based on the execution of the offensive line, the play design, or can an individual running back create that? Well, unless we're talking about Barry Sanders. No. I love running backs. I want running backs to get paid. As I said, I'm happy Nick Chubb got paid. It was the right move. But there's nothing, and Najee Harris is not that kind of back either. You know, here's the best case scenario for Najee Harris, and this is great. Steven Jackson. He could be Steven Jackson. And remember, Steven Jackson on those terrible Rams teams was still highly productive as a fantasy back. So we don't get points for yards per carry. Harris can have a 3.8 yards per carry, still score 12, 14 total touchdowns, still catch 50, 60 balls. Because we know the Steelers, we know Tomlin likes to have an alpha back and just have that guy on the field all the time. And you know Harris is up for it because what do we keep hearing out of training camp? What do we hear out of minicamps OTAs? The team is telling him to step back a little bit. It's okay to not be working 24 hours a day on football.
You don't have to do a handstand every time you go out to the practice field, kid. It's okay.
Play a video game or something. You know, go to Primani Brothers. Get one of those.
You've got the job, okay?
Yeah, but that's great because that's the kind of Herculean effort that they're going to need. Harris is your second round pick in fantasy leagues. I would sign up for that. I'm fine with that because again, he's going to get 60 catches, probably 50, 60. He's going to get 300 carries. He's going to be the automatic option anytime there's a run play near the goal line. He's going to be a player who I think you're going to see some creativity to put him out in the slot or get him out in space as a receiver. He's got good hands. He's a very advanced receiver. And the only problem is he's not Derrick Henry, okay? He's not going to run fools over. He's not going to make his own holes or anything like that. He's not a true power back. Again, Steven Jackson. You don't remember, Steven Jackson was a big back. You don't remember him as a power back. You remember him as a very skilled, a very well-rounded back. So that's what the Steelers got. I don't think he's going to change their fate this year. I think he can help change your fantasy team's fate. And as Steelers fans, we're going to debate this one forever. We're going to watch what those players that went right after him did in the draft because it wasn't what we wanted, but it's what the team wanted, and we knew it was going to happen all along.
How much different would I feel if Javonte Williams was with the Steelers? That's what I keep going back to bring true power to the Steelers' backfield. Now, behind Najee, I always like Darrell Henderson better than Benny Snell. I think we complained about that when Snell and Henderson came into the league. But here you go, Snell. Still waiting for Anthony McFarland to do anything. Kalen Ballage did a little bit. Talk about big backs that don't use power. Jalen Samuels will never be anything. He can play 7 different positions. Yeah, I just want him to play one. Okay. And there's Trey Edmonds as well, rounding things out. So some talented backs, Bloom, but also some great frustration coming along with these names.
Talk frustration. See, mini rant.
Okay.
You can talk about taking a first round running back as something unforgivable or a cardinal sin or something like that. But when you take a first round running back after taking running backs in the 4th round in back-to-back drafts before that, that's bad. That's bad. You wasted those picks. You're basically admitting we wasted those picks. And a 4th round pick is not the draft is 4 rounds long. Hey, Justice Mosqueda. 4th round picks are important. You have to get contributors with 4th round picks. And I don't even know if either of these guys should make the team. In Benny Snell, who, it gives you all the grit, all the effort you want, but you have to have some juice in the NFL. He doesn't have the juice. Anthony McFarland has juice. I don't know if he has any skill, Matt Canada knows him from the time they were together in Maryland, use him on some jet sweeps, get his speed in play. I don't think he's going to be a true NFL running back in terms of those bread and butter running plays. You mentioned Jalen Samuels, who also has a history with Canada at NC State. I loved Samuels as a rookie. I think that knee injury he suffered in his second year, he hasn't been the same. And which brings us to Kalen Ballage. Now let's remember, Kalen Ballage physically is a prototype, right? An NFL prototype. Now, Miami tried to make it happen, right? Teams trying to make it happen with him because of that physical ability. But what you saw last year with the Chargers is he did turn the corner. The game slowed down for him a little bit. He wasn't running blind, at least. You saw some of his speed. And also, he's an excellent receiver. He was an excellent receiver in college. So I think that in a true even competition where the Steelers aren't thinking, are we giving up on a fourth-round pick? Ballage may win this backup job. And Ballage can take some punishment. He's got size, too. So I'm much more interested in who the backup running back is for the Steelers if it's Ballage than if it's Snell or McFarland or whoever it may be, because I think that under the radar, remember, this team, the Chargers, they went away from Josh Kelly and they were playing Kalen Ballage as their number 2 back, that lead power back in that offense last year.
It is the Audible. It's our preseason watch list. We're going through the AFC North, rounding things off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get to the wide receivers, I want to let you know about footballguys.com. If you love the show, you want to support the show, then go to footballguys.com. Dip your toe with our free daily newsletter. Check it out every day. The top stories, hot and fresh to your inbox, with commentary by me, Sigmund, and Joe Bryant. So you want to keep up with the news. You've got a life. We don't. Check out our Football Guys free daily newsletter. And once you've done that, you like what you see, and check out a Football Guys premium subscription. The best way to support the show is by going to footballguys.com, clicking on that orange button that says join now, and get you that premium subscription and say, hey, it's all thanks to the Audible. And we appreciate you greatly. We appreciate Juju Smith-Schuster coming back. It was one of those things, Bloom. This is going to sound really, really cruel. But I was like, don't come back. Don't come back. I don't need the excitement. I don't need the TikTok dance move. I don't need any of that. I'm kind of done with Juju. And when he hit free agency, I was like, okay, go be free. It's in that breakup when you're like, now it's your turn to go thrive somewhere else and leave me alone. And that's kind of how I felt with Juju Smith-Schuster. But we're back and he's back. I'd much rather talk about Chase Claypool, Bloom, and that upside, who's that DK Metcalf of this season, that breakout player. That could be Chase Claypool for sure. Deontay Johnson, if he'd stop dropping passes, even Jerry Jeudy says, damn. But let's talk about these three, including Smith-Schuster coming back, Claypool with that upside, and Johnson with the talent, just the drops.
What's fascinating here, Cecil, is we talked about the Bengals receivers earlier in the AFC North. And from a fantasy standpoint, the Steelers receivers are going like a round later than the Bengals receivers, right? Like you could take Chase in the 4th or Deontay Johnson in the 5th, or you could take Higgins in the early 5th or Chase Claypool in the late 5th or 6th. You can take Tyler Boyd or you can take Juju Smith-Schuster. In every one of those scenarios, give me the Bengals guy. Oh my. I don't want the Steelers guy in those scenarios. I want the Bengals guy. I'll pay a little bit more to get a lot higher upside. Why? So we can step through each of these guys. Deontay Johnson's the most interesting. Would it be shocking if Deontay Johnson caught 120 passes this year? Not at all. He has to stay healthy, and he has to avoid getting in the doghouse with those drops. Training camp, he's like the first guy on the field, last guy to leave the field, well, other than Najee Harris, who never left the field anyway. He's like he has a tent or something, So Deontay Johnson's the most interesting. But again, in that same range of your draft, you're looking at guys that you don't have to say if for them to hit their ceiling, like Chris Godwin, T. Higgins and so on. Chase Claypool, my hesitation with Claypool is twofold. Number one, will this offensive line create time to throw downfield, and will Ben Roethlisberger hang in and throw downfield? And then number two, Claypool did seem to be the kind of player that early when he broke out, his breakout was based on, again, physical superiority. And very rarely does that last in the NFL. Eventually, you have to learn the finer points of the position. So I feel like I get it looking for that DK Metcalf. Remember, DK Metcalf had Russell Wilson throwing to him. I mean, Roethlisberger, there was a time that we would say Roethlisberger would help a wide receiver break out and get to his ceiling. I think that time has passed. Then you get to Juju. And like you said, Cecil, it's almost sad, right? Juju, when 24-year-old going into his second contract, he's going to get paid, right? Crickets. And what's fascinating here is I think the Ravens were in on him. And I get it if you're worried about what your stats did, because the whole narrative here was the Steelers used him as a guy that basically ran a little curl or a button hook at the line of scrimmage last year. That's why he had 97 catches, but for under 1,000 yards. He also caught 9 touchdowns though. So he knows how to get open in the red zone. He and Roethlisberger have that red zone chemistry. And that's why he may still end up being a value after all. But there was this talk, the Steelers used him as strictly as this boring slot receiver. And then that hurts your free agency value. But Baltimore, I get it. That's going to really hurt your free agency value, but you can win a Super Bowl. And this is where Steelers fans say, stop it. They can win a Super Bowl. No, I don't think so. Or Kansas City. Well, why would you pass up signing with Kansas City right now? It comes back to Pittsburgh. I get continuity's good. I get it. Your bosses, the guy at the locker next to you and stuff like that. His role's not going to change. There was talk he's going to play in the out. No, he's not. Deontay Johnson is way better in against press coverage, against man coverage than Juju Smith-Schuster. He belongs in the slot. He could still outperform his draft capital, but he's not going to return to the numbers we saw when he was paired up with Antonio Brown and a Ben Roethlisberger who would hang in, make throws downfield, and an offensive line that would give Roethlisberger time to extend the plays. What were the big Juju Smith-Schuster plays? Extended plays when he and Roethlisberger were on the same page. The defense is breaking down, the play's breaking down. Next thing you know, Juju's free for a 98-yard touchdown. He's had a few of them in his career, right? It ain't happening anymore. And the other thing that's disappointing, circling all the way back to where you started, is they've got James Washington. James Washington's good enough to start for a lot of teams. He might be good enough to start for the Steelers.
Yep.
They didn't need Juju. And they cut Steven Nelson, I think, as part of the whole process to get the money for Juju. So does it make them a better team? I don't think so. I think James Washington's ready to play, and James Washington, segueing here, is like an Auden Tate. Other guys we'll talk about, like Cedric Wilson. That injury upside number 4 wide receiver that you have to remember if a starter goes down, that's James Washington, and I wish him good luck on his next team, on his next contract. They're going to get a value, and we're going to talk about him in fantasy leagues. And
I said, good day, sir.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the rest of these guys, if you'd like. Cody White, maybe. Ray McLeod out there. Right. Isaiah McCoy's gotten some positive press. Let's talk about him, Bloom.
Yeah, I guess we just have to mention Ray McLeod because he's going to make the team. He's going to be there for special teams. He's going to be there for jet sweeps. He's going to be there to add a speed element. So, we don't have that next receiver in the pipeline yet for the Steelers. We'll circle back to that next year. We just hope they have a quarterback for that receiver.
Do you have the next tight end and baby Gronk, Pat Freiermuth? Oh, yeah. Eric Ebron's there. Is he healthy, though? Didn't he get a little banged up in training camp already?
Already.
Elbow?
Yes.
Top of my head? Elbow? Okay, so Eric Ebron's there. Great. Pat Freiermuth is the guy, preseason watch list, Bloom, who I'll be watching from this Steelers tight end group.
Right. It's Heath. It's Heath Miller all over again. It's an excellent two-way tight end. Maybe not somebody who's going to add value. Again, think Austin Hooper. Think the kind of player who's going to be very competent as a receiver, not necessarily add value to his touches, not make eye-popping plays at the catch point or after the catch. Freiermuth's had a really good open to camp so far, and I think the Steelers would be just fine if he outplayed Ebron and became their starting tight end. He obviously offers a lot more as a blocker, but I think because they're both on the roster, and I asked a show I was on, who's more upset, Bears fans that Jimmy Graham's still on the roster or Steelers fans that Eric Ebron's still on the roster? Neither of them really make much sense. That's why I think you could see Freiermuth move to the top of the depth chart. That doesn't mean he's going to matter for fantasy because Eric Ebron is still there, just like Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, just switch the names. The take is the same. Freiermuth, hopefully, most importantly, is going to help as a blocker in the running game, in the passing game, because that's what the Steelers need.
Do you know, as a Steelers fan, what I feel like?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I get that feeling too. Hey, Peter, check out Channel 9.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always have
outside effing A.
Yeah.
I don't think I need a sorry Joe for that one. Maybe I do. Either way, that is a wrap for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the preseason watch list here. It is 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. The show is at the Audible. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thank you guys for watching YouTube things. If you're in the chat room, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Thank you, Sasha. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay tuned and stay frosty.
And wait a few counts before you hit end broadcast.